I'm a student. I study law. And you?
Thank you for coming. I read in the description that I'm supposed to talk about what the change geopolitics will mean to Kashmir. I'm going to briefly talk about what it already has meant, what it's already done to Kashmir, which is recent, this 2016 summer. You're here in London, you're supposed to be a writer, and this is what's happening back home. They were blinding children by the dozen every day, and you, in the evening, you think, maybe it will stop tomorrow because it's enough already, but it goes on and on and on. And by August, when Mr. Modi makes the speech about and mentions Balochistan, it already blinded about 500 people and killed about 50, and he chose to talk about Balochistan, of course, while his forces had actually blinded 5-year-old babies, literally children. And you sit back here and you look for parallels. So has this ever happened anywhere in the world? Are there parallels in history? Are there parallels in medieval times? Are there parallels in Nazi Germany? Are there parallels in fascist Italy? Or anywhere else? You don't find a parallel. And that's where the penny dropped for me in many ways, that this was unprecedented. Nowhere in history, anywhere in contemporary politics, has a state willfully blinded so many people. Because it couldn't have been an accident, it can't be an aberration because, a crowd control tactic has gone wrong, let us look into it and try and do better. No, they knew what these weapons do and they kept blinding people. So what I'm going to say is a figure of Modi, Modi was basically Trump before Trump became Trump in many ways. I do know a little bit about Trump. I follow him on Twitter, unfortunately, because that's the best glimpse you can get into this man's mind. So what the arrival of Modi meant for Kashmir was roughly the same as it was 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 20 years ago. There are people out in the streets protesting, dissenting, and resisting this occupation, which has lasted since the Brits left the subcontinent. And there has been repression starting from 1989 when the armed rebellion started in Kashmir. The Indian military, the Indian state came down very, very heavily, mobilizing an entire population, punishing literally civilians for daring to resist, daring to rise against the might of the Indian state. So we had seen that, we had experienced that in the 90s. Early 90s was horrific. I was there, I was a teenager growing up in Kashmir, I keep saying everywhere. And then we get to the end of the millennium, militancies sort of fading away, there are a handful of militants left. Kashmiris begin to form a different kind of resistance because they realize that this armed resistance has done its job for the purpose of highlighting the Kashmir issue, putting Kashmir on the international map yet again. But following 9/11, things have changed. We're being now branded as terrorists, as Islamists, as jihadists, and the Indian state successfully put all of this in one box, that we also have a similar problem. We got this Islamist terror here and we got to crack down heavily. So Kashmiris reacted in a different manner. They chose more peaceful modes of resistance, coming out into the streets. But the response of the Indian state was the same. Military force, brutal crackdowns. Yet Kashmiris lived through it. Because they were used to it, okay, this is another summer, many of us are going to get killed, we will still protest. And year after year that happened. But 2016 was different for even someone like me. I had seen it firsthand, I'd lived through it. There was a certain vengefulness to the assault of the Kashmiri population. There was a certain revanchist tendency. It was as if the soldiers, the paratroopers, the paramilitary had been told, go after them with full force, do not spare anyone. And I kept thinking about it, that perhaps I'm overreacting, perhaps it's the naive novelist, overreading into things. But by the end of August, it was very clear that something had changed, even in the already brutal response, even in the already brutal architecture of the Indian response, something had gotten worse, which was Modi. The Hindu supremacist germ for me, had actually traveled onto Kashmir. The Kashmiris had now not sinned as daring to resist Indian rule, but now they had sinned as being Muslims while doing so. So Kashmiris had doubly sinned. How dare you resist our rule? What? While being Muslim. So that seemed to me the big change that had already happened. I don't know how much worse it can get from here onwards. I feel sorry to say that it might get worse. So it was this moment where you have this Hindu supremacist, neo-fascist coming to power, as Kavita explained how, and what was the campaign, what was the movement, what kind of violent tactics that lead to the arrival of a man who's a maniac, sometimes it appears to me, like Mr. Trump. A narcissist, definitely. He shares that streak with Trump. And you have these parties then who talk about what's going on in Kashmir. And I heard TV and Indian media, a lot of Indian media, there are exceptions of course all the time. And Kashmiris were being talked about like cattle. It was exactly like cattle, because I happened to have one discussion where they were debating, okay, if not these pellet buckshot weapons, many people here will be familiar with the buckshot gun. It was probably invented in this country. It was meant to hunt prey, birds in flight. That's why the spray of these pellets is multidirectional. It's a spray, because if there are birds in flight, they would be caught. And I had these discussions, people, analysts and security analysts and commentators and columnists talking about, okay, if not pellets, or should we go for sponge-tipped bullets or rubber bullets, or should we go for pepper sprays, or should we go for all kinds of weaponries were discussed, in terms of, and the obvious parallel immediately that came to my mind was Israel, because Israel has actually tested all kinds of crowd control weapons on Palestinians over the years, from rubber bullets, from foam-tipped bullets, sponge-tipped bullets, pellets, you name it. They test them for free is the term that's used in progressive circles in Israel. They test them for free on Palestinians. And I was literally witnessing the same kind of discourse, the same kind of language, the same kind of grammar of oppression and repression on primetime TV, in newspaper columns. There was a famous columnist who actually called, when by that time it was about 300 kids had been blinded in Kashmir, and a renowned columnist, Mr. Dasgupta, Swapan Dasgupta, a bright man apparently, and he, no, really, I've been told he's a educated, bright man. And he discussed that this was harsh love for Kashmir. And by that time we had seen pictures, and I was researching this little journalistic piece I had to do. And I had, you have to do this. This is, you get your hands dirty indirectly. You don't go to Kashmir because I couldn't. And this was a man, a leading columnist and a leading thinker, if I may, ideologue of the BJP, talking about harsh love, when we had a 14-year-old girl blinded completely because she was sitting in her kitchen and she heard some noise outside. It was the police marching through their streets, and when she screamed or something, the police entered and sprayed this pellet spray on her face, and she's lost her vision. And you had these people. So what happens then? How does a constitutionally democratic, secular, modern nation state arrive at this point where you're perfectly fine, happily discussing different ways of blinding, protesting kids, or different ways of killing them? Nobody was talking about arresting them, by the way. It did come, it said, okay, in many countries around the world, people protest, you take them away, or you say, okay, let's, do something. None of them discussed this. And I'm not talking about just the right-wing ideologues. It was also so-called Indian liberals talking about Kashmiri students, Kashmiri boys and girls as if they were cattle. How much time do I have? Because I want to mention something.
Well, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay. Amidst all this, what was lost was the violence on women. because such was the ferocity, the viciousness of the attack on protesters that's made headlines, all the mainstream newspapers and TV outlets and BBCs and NYTs and Guardians of the world ran stories on this. And I caught a glimpse of a story which was taken off immediately by a local newspaper, a very good newspaper called Kashmiri Reader. And they had, one of the reporters had gone into one of the villages and found that one of the Indian paramilitaries had surrounded a family and sexually assaulted them and stripped a teenage girl inside a vehicle they used to arrest people. And this was the only mention of the story. And it was horrific, it was chilling, this sort of thing can happen in broad daylight in Kashmir. And soon after that, the story disappeared. And soon after that, the newspaper was banned. But when I say ban, it means security forces, armed forces I should say, not security forces, the police barge into a newspaper office and physically take copies away and padlock the offices of the newspaper. Why? Because that was the only newspaper that ran the story of horrific sexual violence on Kashmiri girls who happened to be on the street, even if they were protesting. No one deserves to be blinded or anything like that. And this then you have more stories of armed forces coming into houses and the sort of harassing women, pulling them by their clothes. And you have to imagine this is a society where it's not patriarchal, it's conservative society, roughly speaking. And women dress modestly in 3-4 courts, I should say, as the local traditions determine. And the idea of someone's scarf being pulled by a soldier who is from that place in India is considered a massive instance of violence or any kind of action in that context. The idea that you enter someone's home and you ask the mother, "Where is your son? He was pelting stones the other day. We need you to find him." And then pressuring the parents, and then if that wouldn't work, taking them away for the night, just like that. You have to come with us because your son was seen pelting stones at the CRPF or the BSF last week, so you have to now produce him, and if you don't, you will stay with us. This is a picture of a state where even normal police laws don't function. Yesterday I read a report that they are introducing a draft police bill which will give police powers to designate any area, is the word written in this draft, any area as disturbed, and then convert them into special security zones, which basically means an internment. You surround an area and say this is a disturbed area. We are turning this into a special security zone, which is internment. And that is a manifestation of our current politics in South Asia and elsewhere. That you have this man at the top who will inflict all kinds of violence and become the prime minister of the country. So I am a trooper in Srinagar, and I am dealing with these rebels, these evil Muslims who are questioning the might of the Indian state, and so I am free to do anything to them, especially when I have blessings from the very, very top. So that is a sad, devastating consequence of having a Modi figure in Delhi or having how should I describe Mr. Trump? A man with the composure of a hormonal teenager, something that he just loses it every day. But the problem is it doesn't stay funny because it is very, very scary. This man is now not just calling news lies, he is now launching, as someone put it, he's launching preemptive attacks on news and truth. Before it is out, he says lie, 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 lie. It is a scary time. Do I have 1 minute? So what I was going to say in my speech, which I didn't say at all, was, but why have we come here? It's not about Trump and Modi. We focus a lot of energy on these figures. Trump has been making a long, long time. The Modi, was in the making for a long, long time, and we took eyes off the ball, to put it crudely. We've been complacent. You don't look at the machinery that produces a Trump. You don't look at the machinery that produces a Modi. Modi has been coming a long, long time, ever since he was there on that marauding Rath Yatra in the early 90s with Mr. Advani, when they ran through India and converted India into what it was not destined to be. Similarly for Trump, there is a huge baggage, decades of hate, even enshrined in law in the US, that enabled a Trump to come. And for people like us, I tend to think, with all shades of opinion, of course, it is time to organize like the right does. Be strong and we haven't. It's not. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we just have
I'm a student. I study law.